Hello and welcome to this video. On this video, I'm going to be doing something positive rather than negative. I originally turned up and I was going to go through my Yes albums and pick the worst track on every one, but I have to be honest, I couldn't really see how I could extract much humour from doing that. Yes being such a serious band. I thought there would be some humour there, but I mean, it's very difficult to try and get a joke out of the worst track on Tales from Topographic Oceans. And you see, when I do the worst, it's really more to have a bit of a jest with a band that we love. It's not really about hate, as some of you may have realised. So I've decided at the last minute to change the structure of this video to the best song on every Yes album. But of course, you know, I ain't going to be doing every Yes album. You don't really want to sit through all that nonsense, do you? Now, I'm going to be doing the classic Yes from 1968 with their debut all the way up to 1984 with their 90125 album. And of course, with my videos, unlike everybody else, I haven't really worked this out. Well, I haven't worked it out at all. I've just decided just to do it just now, right? And then to throw into the mix, there's a couple of albums that I don't know that well, to be honest. One is Time and a Word, which I don't own. And the other one is Tormato, which I never really listened to as a kid. I heard it, didn't like it, and it's only more recently that I've started to appreciate that album more. So, when we will cross those bridges when I come to them, you know. And that nearly put me off doing the video today, because I know how anal retentive progressive rock fans can be. And when they realise I'm not doing all the albums, and then they realise I don't own a copy of Time of the Word, and then I've just admitted I don't know those albums very well, then they will be up in arms and saying you have no right to be doing a video like this. But I do have a right, and I tell you why, because I've got the channel, I've got the subscribers, and I've got the views. And you might think that you know more about it than me, but you haven't got that, have you? Progressive rock fan. And if you came and sat here, it would probably be an hour of you going, well, actually, I'm Time of the Word. I often thought the track then was their best. And it'd be like that. Nobody would want to watch it because you're not entertaining. I'm entertaining. That's the bloody thing. I'm entertaining. Right, but this one's not going to be that entertaining. It's going to be more of a sort of proper video where we do the a very important task of me telling you what I think is the best track on each of these albums. A job that needs to, you need to know, don't you? You need to know. I'm trying to pep this video up at the start because I got a bad feeling about this video. And I think we're going to hit a problem with it. But I'm not going to tell you the problem, but I've alerted you that I'm aware that there's a problem from the outset. I am aware that there's a problem with this one. And we will see. And it might be a combination of the fact that some of these albums only have 3 tracks on them. And also, Yes are really good. So they didn't actually do that many duds. Oh, we'll have to see. And without duds, it's not very entertaining. It's not like Led Zeppelin when you got bloody Hot Dog down by the seaside. All of those things we know. Jamaica, there's loads to talk about with Led Zeppelin. They're the worst tunes, and the best ones are bloody obvious. And is it not the fact that the best ones on these are obvious? Shall we just get into it and see what happens? Like I say, I don't know how this is going to go, but I've changed the angle of my camera, and I think this view looks absolutely lovely. I've got the shadow of the camera here, which I quite like. It means I can sort of, that's you, that is, the dark shadow of the audience and your influence. Look at that. You can see that. That's quite weird, isn't it? There you are, and then you're gone. Where are you, audience? You're there. Then you got the dark shadow, the black spot of judgment. That's what we've got going on here. Now, if I'm not careful, I'm going to fall into something that happens every now and then with me, whereas I can't get out the beginning of the video and I just spin around forever and ever, cycling around and never getting around to it. Because I don't want to really do it. It's not that I don't want to talk about Yes, it's not that I don't want to talk about these tracks, but I have a foreboding. There's a foreboding here before we even start, and hopefully the fact that there's a foreboding will have enticed you in. Are we going to meet something foreboding, or is it just the thought that something might be foreboding, which is what the quality of forebodingness is? Maybe the whole reason we have the feeling of foreboding is because there might not be actually anything foreboding in the future to be foreboding. Have you ever thought about that? You know, so don't have a go at me. If in the end, after this sort of build-up, and you there sat there thinking, oh, something's going to happen on this, I'm going to watch it. It's like one of them camping videos on YouTube. They've gone off with their bacon and eggs, and they're in the forest, and it's all nice, ethereal, having a nice day out. And then somebody's in the bloody... I've been watching millions of these videos. Oh, I think someone's out there. Can you hear anything? And then you hear, oh my God, I don't like this. And they have to get in their tent and zip it up and go, I know when they're going to go away. I can hear footsteps. That's the sort of video that gets 1 million views, you see. Now, this ain't going to get 1 million views, but if I can get a little bit of foreboding in at the start, you see. Right, so I think I've milked the beginning enough. Shall we just get straight into it, shall we? It's going to be a disaster. Right. So the first album that they made was this. That's the one there. They're called Yes. And that's the album there. And the album is also called Yes. And it features like a pink speech bubble with the word yes in. When you turn it around, right, you also get the word yes. This is perhaps one of the greatest misuses of a gatefold. That is a misuse of a gatefold. I don't know what the original was like, but mine is pretty horrible. When you open it up, there, you've got a blue photograph of the band there, as you can see. And then we've got this horrible mixture of blue and red. You know, it was supposed to look like handwriting. And I've added to it at some point a bit of spaghetti bolognese there, which I think's enhanced it. So let's see what we've got. You know, it's got a bit of text in here. And the thing is, this is why I like doing videos where we can hold the album, because we can actually explore the album, because now everyone's listening to it on Spotify or CD, and they miss out on all of these things. At the beginning of 1969, I was asked, who was this? Tony Wilson from Melody Maker. I was asked, as were all Melody Maker writers, to pick two groups who I thought would make it in the following year. One of my choices was Led Zeppelin, a bit obvious perhaps, but then we all like to back a winner occasionally. That's interesting that they knew Zeppelin were going to be big from the outset. What about Yes? The other was Yes. I just heard them in London, in a London discotheque, where all too often the groups tend to be over-amplified and under-talented. That's how this is such crap pre-rock and roll. This is like the sort of Melody Maker from the 1950s critique, you know. Over-amplified and under-talented and in need of a good haircut too. It's all like that. It's pathetic. Yes, were not. They had much more than the usual wallpaper music sound. There was life, virility, and musicianship in their approach. They were virile. I've always thought Yes are virile. Do you want to see a group of virile men there? Look at that. And you get the shadow as well. I'm not too sure about this shadow. I think I've cocked up with the light here. They had a superior vocal sound, assured, clear, and harmonic. They knew what they were doing and did it with style. It showed in their own songs and in the imaginative arrangements of other people's tunes. I've added that other bit in because this is the whole point. It all shows on their first album. So Yes became my other choice, my second runner in the great group, most likely to make its stakes. And my memory is on them. Naturally, I've watched them with special interest at the Marquee, the Speakeasy, in concert with Janis Joplin and Cream. Totally convinced after these events of my choice is confirmed. So there's this guy saying this is the band to look out for. And I find this very interesting because, of course, we know that, yes, in this incarnation, it wasn't quite right, was it? You know, the Tony Kaye, Peter Banks combination wasn't quite right. And it's really Peter Banks. Now, around about 2006, I got booked to play at Rozfest, a progressive rock festival in America. It's like in Philadelphia or somewhere near there, that sort of place. I remember the gig took place in the cinema that is featured in the film The Blob. I remember that. And I was going over with a band called Neo. But I also got booked to play with Peter Banks. And when we all met at the airport, Peter Banks' passport is not in the name of Peter Banks. It is in the name of Peter Brocklebanks, I think, which meant he couldn't do it. So that gig got cancelled. But I actually had to learn a whole ton of songs from the first two albums. So there's not that much on the first album. So it was quite a few from the second album, and even with that, I still can't remember the second album. That's probably the most I've ever listened to it. But this album, I listened to right from the early days, and I love this album, unlike a lot of other people that see it as not being quite a Yes album. Now, if we have a look at the vinyl here, right, we've got a Lennon and McCartney song, Beatles song, Every Little Thing on here. The rest of side two, that's side two, is all Yes penned. And then here we've got I See You, which is, I think is written by John McGinn and David Crosby. So which band would that be? Oh, I can't remember. Some bloody 60s band. Pre-Crosby, Stills and Nash. And yet the rest are all written by Yes. But to me, it always felt to be pulled down by these cover versions. Now, my favourite tune on here was always the tune I See You, one of the cover versions, which comes in at 6 minutes 33. It's the longest track on side one and features some incredible drumming from Bill Bruford. But if I sit back and go through these tunes as I am now, it's between Survival and Beyond and Before. Now, I can remember Survival was the closest to a prog track on here, I think. But I never liked the lyrics of that, and I don't know why. So I'm going to jump back into the lyrics and see if I can find the Survival and see what I didn't like about it. So these are the lyrics to Survival. Sunshine is creeping in, and somewhere in a field a life begins. An egg too proud to rape the beginning of shape of things to come. That's why I didn't like it. What's that about? An egg too proud to rape the beginning of a shape of things to come. That starts the run, life has begun, fly the fast gun. It all seems to be about procreation and raping things, and it seems all very unsavoury for John Anderson, who wrote this tune entirely, so it's all his work. The mother flew too late, and life within the egg was left to fate. And not really knowing how the world outside would take it when it came, and life's the same for things we aim. Are we to blame? It's too mopey. It's all like, oh, you're going to be born, you're an orphan, an orphan bird. I mean, it's like, it's I don't know, that's off the list. So we come down to Beyond and Before, which is a cracking song, isn't it? Beyond and Before is a cracking song. So shall we go for that off the first album? Right, so now Time in the Word, the second album, if I remember rightly, is I've never owned it. It's got a number of features about it. I know it's more proggy. I don't feel it's produced that well compared to what they sound like later on. That's one of the features I didn't like about it. It had a bare lady, as we used to call them in the 1970s. There was a bare lady on the front, which, would have elicited excitement pre-internet era for a younger man. But also it meant I would have had to buy it and said, Mom, can I buy this album? What album are you buying? And then had to show her the cover. And then I was saying, what the hell's that? It's got a bare lady on the front. And then I didn't want to go through that embarrassment. There was a whole ton of rock albums. Love Hunter by Whitesnake, the Love Drive by the Scorpions. I can go through them all where they had bare ladies at the front, and this was why I never ended up with this album when I was younger, obsessed with Yes and going through the whole catalogue. I remember they've got an orchestra on it. This is 1970s, isn't it? All the bands are having orchestras at that point because of the Moody Blues. I'm sure there's another tune on there, an epic, which is about some sort of hatching of a plant there's always bloody eggs hatching and stuff at this point in the S's thing. I can't remember that. I know the sort of famous tune is Then. That's the single that came out. But I have to be honest, my favourite one on here, from my vague memory of this album, it's not great, is the tune Time in a Word, which is a nice song. There's a word, and the time is word, and it's right for me. I love that. I think that's a nice tune. It was featured on the Yes Show's album, wasn't it? And they do a better version there, to be honest. So, Time in a Word, I'm sure you'll go... Time in a Word's way better than you think, Andy. It's way better. And then there'll be real adult retentive saying, there was a certain release that did never bear lady on. You could have gone for that release. No, I couldn't when I was like bloody 13 years old in their local record shop, Right, so you don't understand what it was like in the early 80s for a younger man, trying to buy records and trying to negotiate these things with your parents. It was a different time. Now, hey, all let it hang out, don't they? It's all different now, isn't it? But and we will meet the thorny issue of Naked Flesh on the future albums. But anyway, let's get the first two albums out of the way and move on to something that's got a bit more juice about it. An absolute masterpiece, which is the third album, where they finally ditch Peter Banks and they get Steve Howe in. And Steve Howe's way better, and he brings something to them. They've still got the other one in, Tony Kaye. It's so confusing, isn't it? You got Peter Banks, you've got Tony Banks in Genesis, and you've got Tony Kaye, right? And then you've got JK in Jamiroquai, who is actually a K, because his mom is Karen Kaye, the sort of jazz singer and impressionist. Facts you don't want to know and don't need to know. But anyway, this is a gatefold sleeve. It memorialises, I think they had a car crash, and poor old Tony Kaye had broken his foot, so you can see that in a cast. And then there's that there, which is a bit of sort of almost like conceptual art from Yes. You wouldn't expect that, would you? The Yes album, you open it up, some lovely photographs. Now, I've always wondered why Tony Kaye gets such a feature in the middle of it when they know that they're going to be giving him the old heave-ho. Do you think that was part of it? Do you think they thought, well, we'll get rid of him after this album. We'll get Rick Wakeman in his way better. He's got loads more keyboards and he's got blonde hair and a bloody gold cape. Let's get him in. Yeah, but what should we do? Yeah, but we need him to finish the album. Well, why don't we put him on the middle, and then he'll think, oh, my position in this band's assured if they've just done that. No, it's not, mate. It's not assured at all. Now, this is an amazing album. This is the album that got me into progressive rock, right? Many, many years ago, I would say around about 1981, this kid came up to me at school and said, I've got this weird album, I don't like it, but you like weird music, you might like it. Do you want to swap it? And I said, yeah, I've got a Hawkwind Silver Machine picture disc. Do you want to swap it for that? He went, oh yeah, I'd love a picture disc, because they were always great things to have in the early 80s. So I brought my picture disc in, gave it to him, and swapped it for this album, took it home, put it on, and it was like my life changed. Yours Is No Disgrace, amazing. The Clap, amazing. Starship Trooper, amazing. I've Seen All Good People, amazing. Adventure, amazing. Perpetual Change, amazing. They're all amazing on here. But I have to be honest, if I'm going to go for one track, it happens to be one of the greatest progressive rock tracks ever made. And that is Starship Trooper. What a tune. What a tune. Worm. What a tune. Yeah, apparently on Your Move there's recorders, and they're played by a fella called Colin Goldring. I didn't know that. That's weird, that is, because I stared at the back of this album back in 1981, 45 years ago, and I tried to memorise what was on here. Brilliant. So, yeah, this is a brilliant album. I think I would go for Starship Trooper. So, on my best of Yes, you have Beyond and Before, first track. Second track will be Time and a Word. Third track, Starship Trooper off this album. Right, now, once they've ditched old Tony Kaye, they get Rick Wakeman in, and the classic lineup is now in evidence. And they're going back into the studio to make this album their fourth album. Now, we all think of this as being the definitive Yes album. The sound is now fully formed. But actually, this album is a little bit sort of indistinct in its vision. Why? Because they're all getting a bit fed up with each other at this point. This is a feature of Yes, you know. And so they decide on this album to try and utilise it to get everybody a little point to do their solo spot. Years later, they have the much better idea of, in 1974, closing Yes down for 3 years, and they all go off and make their solo albums, of which the only good ones are the ones that sound like Yes and feature the guys from Yes. It was a bit of a waste of time, really, but that was one way of keeping everybody happy, because when you got a band like Yes full of the egos that are in this band, you've got to keep everybody happy. And this album, although sort of almost being the definitive Yes album, does feature some, you know, little solo sections, doesn't it? We've got Rick Wakeman's sort of overdubbed version of Cans and Brahms. It's called Cans and Brahms. Then we have John Anderson's We Are Heaven. I quite like that. Then we have 5% and Nothing by Bruford. That's amazing. Proto jazz rock fusion. It's quite ahead of its time in a way. And then we have The Fish by Chris Squire, which is like a bass solo. That's brilliant. That's almost like a definitive Yes tune. That's probably the most successful out of these solo tunes. And Mood for a Day is great. If I was going for the worst one, it was definitely be Cans and Brahms. I would take that off, and I would put on their version of. They did a version of America. Was it on this album? Or was it on the album before? And scrap that. And this would be probably seen as their greatest album, because the rest of it is pretty insane, isn't it? Roundabout, incredible. South Side of the Sky, incredible. Long Distance Runaround, incredible. Heart of the Sunrise, incredible. Those 4 tracks are basically the 4 Yes tracks on this album. The rest of it is padded out. For me, although Roundabout is their most famous tune, it's Heart of the Sunrise. And on Heart of the Sunrise, it's so heavy, we see Yes adding to the sort of musical approach that's going to end up with prog metal. You know, it's so ridiculously heavy. When you listen to something like Dream Theater, they are birthed in that track. This album came out in 1972, didn't it? They are birthed in the track in The Heart of the Sunrise. It was actually says it came out in 73, but I'm pretty sure this was recorded and released 72. I think it was. It's got no dates on it, has it? Recorded in 1971, that's right. So it's recorded in 1971, it comes out in 1972. So we're right in the early period of that golden age of prog. And Yes have come in and pretty much defined the genre for me. For me, Yes are the greatest progressive rock band of all time. And prog is basically what Yes do. And everyone else is just doing their version of Yes's music. That's how I see it. Move too far away from the Yes formula for prog, and you're not prog. That's why Magman's not prog, isn't it? So they then go back into the studio. It's 1972, I believe, and they decide to pull all the stops out. This is the beautiful thing about this period. The critics don't appreciate it. The general public laugh at it. But the truth is this stupid form of music, rock music, that started off with bloody Chuck Berry, singing about his dingling or whatever it was, has developed, through this, the Beatles and everything. And it's got to a point in the early 70s where rock music, a popular form of music, which is loved by millions and millions of people, is reaching so far past the remit of pop and still selling 1 million records. And for me, although we could see Dark Side of the Moon in 73 as probably being the top of the mountain for that, but the sort of musical virtuosity and arrangement and complexity that we associate with prog isn't so much in evidence on Dark Side of the Moon. The complexity there is conceptual. But Yes come in top of their game and make this album perhaps the greatest progressive rock album ever made, one of the greatest albums ever made, undoubtedly, and probably the most successful rock album ever to try and go beyond the realms of what you expect from popular music. This is the greatest album. Right? Now, to the general public, they probably see Sgt. Pepper as being something like that. No, this is the album. This is an incredible album. And of course, we've just got 3 tracks on here, haven't we? We've got the Sidelong Close to the Edge. We've got And You and I and Siberian Cartridge. Now, I think all 3 tracks are not just good and brilliant. They're all sublime. I believe... And I'm being serious now. This video's had a bit of silliness in, but I'm being serious because I wanted to make a point about Yes. Their great statement is made on this album. That statement includes Bill Bruford. He's gone after this album, and we never have that back again. Great though Alan White is, but the sound's different. But there is something, just the perfect harmony of these musicians, right? That's the first thing you have to remember. So this is gone after this. We're never going to get it back. They are discovering what they're discovering at the time. So you have that feeling that they have just gone off the end of the bloody pier in terms of what their conceptual idea is of what this music should be. And it should have been a failure. But it's not. Why? Because they never put a musical footstep wrong. Everyone can do a sidelong track. Everyone can have complex bits. Everyone can have gobbledygook lyrics and all the type of things that Yes do. But there's a very few bands that can pull that together and never put a foot wrong. So people bought this in its droves. And then when their mate said, what's the new Yes album like? They said, it's amazing, which made the thing sell millions of copies, made them all millionaires. This is an incredible moment in music, right? And we're down to these three tracks, and this is the definitive album for Yes. If you're going to own one album by Yes, it's this one. And I believe that And You and I, the opener on side 2, is Yes's finest moment, is beyond what they normally do. It's just so perfect. It's effortless. It's absolutely effortless. It's beautiful. And I have to be honest, and some of you may have picked up on this, we talk a lot about prog, but I grew out of prog very quickly. By the time I was, say, 17, I was not listening to prog anymore and would never have listened to it again. Once I discovered the Mahavishnu Orchestra and then Miles Davis and then John Coltrane, this stuff sounded trite and it seemed to be like juvenile and immature, silly, overblown. That's what prog was like to me, and I really rejected it, as a very serious young musician, in the late 80s, and I never listened to prog again. And so years later, I got the audition with IQ, and I was like, well, I quite like prog. I used to like prog when I was young. I checked out IQ. I liked what they were doing, but still I was like, yeah, but they do all this old 70s prog thing. And I thought maybe I'll go and put something, have another listen. So I pulled out my old albums and I listened to a few albums, Genesis, ELP. Then I can remember it as clear as day. I put And You and I on, and I was choked up with emotion that how great this music is. At the moment in the car, I'm listening to Gustav Holst's The Planets. I listen to this once a year and it's been listened to at the moment. And I can't get past the bloody tracks because I'll play a track, play Jupiter or whatever it is, and then when it gets to the end, I have to put it back on again. There's no other classical music that does this to me. And what Gustav Holst nails with The Planets is very similar to what they nail with this album. And it's on And You and I. Right? And it's on And You and I. And as although everybody thinks that Mars brings us of war, that's like the close to the edge. It was actually close to the gates of delirium, to be honest. But that's the close to the edge on The Planets of Gustav Holst. I'm using one bizarre ruler to measure another bizarre ruler. But for me, the greatest tune of The Planets is Jupiter because of the tunes. Da 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 da. Everybody. I vow to thee, my God. Just enough of that. I got stuck in a patriotic trap then, you see. It does happen to me. And it's very difficult to be patriotic at the moment in my country with our bloody royal family. What a letdown. What a letdown they have been, really. Scrap them. Can't believe I'm saying it. Scrap them. We need to get rid of it. We need another royal family in. It's happened before, right? We chopped one of the king's heads off. That might not be a bad idea at the moment. Not for Charles, although I don't know. I don't like it at all. I don't want to get political. But and I'm you know what I'm like. I'm very patriotic, right? Very patriotic. I love my country. I love the trees and the fields. I love the little churches and the little graveyards. I love all that. And I love having a pork pie and sitting by a river. Might be doing a bit of fishing. I might wade out into the river and have a look around. A little dragonfly might fly by. I love all that. That's what I love about England, right? And that's what I hear on this album. When this opens up, and you hear all those birds are tweeting, and you think, where am I? I'm in a field, right? I'm in an English field, and it's a lovely sunny day, but I've dropped some acid, and before I know it, I'm in this nether world, this other world, like an inverted world, But no, I'm not happy with our royal family. I think we should scrap them, and I think we should get the national lottery, and we can say this month you'll win being King of England or Queen of England, and then you do it, and we'll just pick a regular sort of person, boot them out, and stick them in, right? Because it's hard work. You don't realise how hard work it is being a royal. No, it's not. They sat around most of the time just shooting at stuff and driving around in Land Rovers. That's the bottom line with the royal family. Then they have to go out and do what? Bloody cut a ribbon on something. Scrap them. Get somebody in. Start again from just a decent English person. An English person. Get somebody, get one of the English people where their parents came from the Caribbean. That would be amazing. Get a what do you call them? Jamaican family that's come in on Windrush, worked hard, put their blood and toil into this country. Reward them and make them bloody king of this country, right? Reward. Oh God, it's all gone wrong. It's all gone wrong. My country's gone wrong. And you and I. Best one on there. And I'm annoyed now. Bloody Gustav Holst bringing up feelings that I didn't want to have brought up. Right, what are we on to now? Tell some Topographic Oceans, aren't we? Here we go. There it is. This came out, everyone loved it, they all bought it, went to #1 probably all over the bloody world, sold millions of copies, and then bloody Melody Maker and NME, they got involved in all those bloody crawly critics, all sat there with their arms folded, thinking they're cool with their little haircuts and bloody Patti Smith albums under their arm. Yeah, you heard Tales and Topic. I'm quite tired with this progressive rock thing. I mean, I felt that Yes had got overblown with Close to the Edge when they brought that out, but we all went along with it and said it was very good, because of course, from a technical point of view, it was very good. But in the end, is that what music's about, being technically great, in this world where privilege is flaunted, these young men, with the world in front of them walking around like little princes. No, we need to get some working class people up, we need to scrap off all these middle class progressive rock types, John Anderson's thinking, I'm bloody not working, I'm not middle class, none of them are. Well, some of them are a little bit, I suppose. Who's the most poshest in the S? It's Chris Squire, isn't he? Isn't he really posh? Isn't he related to someone in Genesis or went to school? Didn't like one of the Genesis blokes? And isn't there a link up of poshness through Chris Squire? Come on, put it in the comments. My knowledge is there. It's there. Right. So the critics bash this one, don't they? They bash Topographic Oceans, and then it goes down. It becomes the butt of every documentary, every rock music documentary for about 30 years. It was prog was all rubbish. The LP got some lorries and put their names on the top, and nobody can read the words. And then yes, they're off their heads. They go to the studio. They have a fake cow. There's John Anderson milking a fake cow sat on a hay bale. And then in more recent times, people go, no, it's bloody amazing. They nailed it. It's bloody double album with one track on each side. They bloody nailed it. It drags a bit, but how many double albums drag? Even Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder drags, doesn't it? Most double albums drag. It's not a crime to have a double album that drags, does it? Think about it. Lamb Lies Down on Broadway drags, doesn't it? It drags. All those Beatle albums that are double albums, they're about 15 minutes aside anyway. They don't drag so much, though, do they? I've done that video. So, which is the best one on here? Well, the opener's good, isn't it? Revealing a Science of God, that's really good. I used to think the Remembering was boring when I was a kid, but now I think it's amazing. I love The Ancients, although that's the one nobody likes. But I love it because it's got loads of drum solos on it. But I feel this whole album is building up to the final track, which is very successful. Ritual, Nous Sommes du Soleil. So if you're only going to have one track on it would be that one. You have to jump into this slow build-up over the whole album. But you can. You jump in, and then it takes you up to the climax, which is the big climax, where they go, Nous Sommes du Soleil, for ages and ages. It's amazing. Ritual's about the best one on here, I would say. Do you agree? Ritual, that one's that done. I'm going to get a move on now. Right, so they go out on tour, right? And They toured the Mavish Yorkshire. Mavish Yorkshire come out. Nobody understands how much the Mavish Yorkshire changed the face of all bands at that time. And Yes go from being this sort of ethereal, sprites in the forest, jumping around in golden capes and all that bit. And they decide to, kick it up a gear, get a bit more hysterical, get a bit more out there. And they go back in and they do the hysterical Mahavishnu Orchestra influenced Close to the Edge, which is this one. Same format, one track on the whole of side one, and then two tracks on the whole of side two. Amazing, right? This is amazing. Gates of Delirium for me is pretty close to the Edge, and it may be even beyond it, to be honest. But I always let down by side two. It's not at the same level. I mean, we're talking about sublime progressive rock here. But side two, Sound Chaser, they're just a bit flapping around for me. So it's good. And To Be Over, people love this track because it builds up. But for me, I think my favourite one on this would be, and that's why I didn't want to do the bloody worst off, because I knew I would have to pick Sound Chaser or To Be Over if I was going to the least worst. They're amazing, but... And I've got to say why they're not that good, and it's bloody hard when they are amazing tracks. It's Gates of Delirium. Gates of Delirium. Is Gates of Delirium better than the Close to the Edge? I think it is. I really do think it is. They then all go on holiday, don't they? We all go off on holiday. Well-deserved holiday. Rick Wakeman's already done 6 Wives of Henry VIII. He's already done his own solo career. And so he then starts Journey to the Centre of the Earth, and he's doing all that. And Alan White doesn't know what to do with himself. He goes off and does Ramshackled. Now, I'll tell you how good Ramshackled is. I saw it the other day in a bargain bin. It was about £3. And I looked at it and thought, can't be arsed, I ain't buying that. For £3, I still wouldn't buy it. So that's a rubbish. The best one is Fish Out of Water, which is almost like an Honorary Yes album. That's a really good album. John Anderson's solo album, which is called Elias of Sun Hillow, is probably the best of that bunch, but it's so out there and weird that it's. I've always felt it's the most prog album ever made, Elias of Sun Hillow. It's just insane. I love that album, but it is weird. The album that Steve Howe what was that called? That album. Was it called Beginnings, was it? That's quite good. I got that album. It's quite good. It's just undone by Steve Howe singing. Steve Howe always thinks he's better than he really is, isn't he? And I tell you something that starts to emerge on it starts on Tales from Topographic Oceans. And I wonder whether it's when Alan White comes in, because Bruford goes and Alan White comes in. And what happens at that point is every tune, the arrangement, is Steve Howe running up and down all over the guitar. That's what he does it. He does it on Relayer, and then when they all get back together, he's doing it a lot on this album. Now, he's one of the greatest prog albums ever made. This one here, right? This is incredible album. But if you notice that Steve Howe is just bloody going, so what's your part today? I just thought I'd whittle up and down. And then what about the second section? I might whittle up and down. What about the middle section? I'll whittle up and down, but I'll do it with a slide this time. And that happens a little bit on here, but it's in perfect balance. Now, we all know, right, that Going for the One's amazing. Turn of the Century is probably the least good on here, but it's still really good. Parallels is amazing. I love Parallels. Wondrous Stories is amazing. Little short poppy prog tune for you there. And then Awaken, of course, is the greatest progressive rock tune of all time. Awaken is... Yes, its finest moments. It's prog's finest moment. It might be humanity's finest moment. So obviously it's Awaken. There's a video on my channel somewhere where I got 2 of my mates that never heard Awaken. I sit them down and get to listen to it. But they don't seem impressed like I am by it. I was sold that track by Tommy Vance, who used to play in his 10 greatest tunes of all time on the Friday Rock Show. And I was to sit there with the headphones on, not really know who Yes were, going, what the hell is this? He'd play Stairway to Heaven, that was really good, but then they'd have Awaken, and it was like getting in a golden chariot and being taken to heaven. That's what that one's like. Right. So we got 3 left before I'm going to call it a day on this one. So the next album after this one is the troublesome Tormato, and it's an album I don't know that well. I said I heard it many years ago, didn't really like it. Why I didn't like it? I didn't like the production, and it seemed a bit flappy. Now, of course, the greatest tune on here, which one is? It's called "On the Silent Wings of Freedom." That's the great big epic, and it's up there. It's up there. I mean, how long is that epic there? Shall we have a look? Oh, it hasn't got times. Arriving UFO, Circus of Heaven, Onward, and On the Silent Wings of Freedom. It doesn't look that long, and it looks like about 7 minutes on here, I'd say. But it seems like a big epic to me when I listen to it, from what I remember. But without a doubt, On the Silent Wings of Freedom is the greatest one on this album. I think a remix would be great. The only thing it suffers from is this is when Steve Howe is just flapping around all over it. He should have just held it in a little bit. And also, Rick Mateman's solo. I think, what the hell are you doing? It's as though they've all got too, like, nonchalant. They're all like, yeah, we'll make an album. And they just think I can just do anything and it'll be okay. It's a little bit like that. But that's the finest moment on Tormato anyway. So at this point, as we know, John Anderson goes. And when John Anderson goes, there is no yes. Without John Anderson, there's no yes. So they bring in the Buggles, Trevor Horn, and they do this album. Now, for a start off, one of the greatest Yes covers ever, isn't it? I mean, that's a proper Yes cover. Open it up, and there they are. Having the annual armpit check. Right? Once a year, Yes would have their armpits checked. As you can see, Steve Howe would get very excited about this, and he's stripped off already. You see, already stripped off. Whereas, who the hell's that there? I can't even tell. Is that Jeff Downes? Yeah, that's Jeff Downes, isn't it? Jeff Downes ain't happy about it. Right, Alan White. Oh, he's the one with his shirt off. Yeah, so Alan's got his shirt off and he's quite happy about it. But like, Steve Howe's so happy, he's gone boss-eyed. Can you see his eyes on that? It's an incredible photo. Why would they do this? Why are they all... I mean, in reality, they're just looking out of a window and holding up like that. No one's really checking their armpits. This is all great stuff, though, isn't it? It's one of Yes's greatest albums. Can't they just go get the master tapes and get John Anderson in and get him to redo the vocals, right? And the thing is, Trevor Horn sounds like John Anderson. When I put this album on, I forget this Trevor Horn. I think it's John Anderson singing. It's a strange album. Tempest Fugit's good, but for me, it's Machine Messiah. It's heavy, and it's like the flappiness of Tormato. They haven't got any flappiness here, right? But of course, they went out on tour, did the album Yes shows, which is amazing, and the fans were like, "Oh, we're not going to take this." No, without John Anderson. They should have learnt a lesson then, shouldn't they? Now, I am going to just bring in this one here. 90125 on CD. I love this album. It's one of their greatest albums. It's so perfectly made. The songwriting's incredibly strong. Every tune's a little pop song, but within it, all the complexity and arrangement and techniques and compositional stuff that Yes did on all of those albums is still in evidence. And it amazes me that people haven't got the ears to be able to hear that when they put this on. My gut feeling was to say Changes, because it starts off in a very sort of prog way. But then it settles down into something which is a cool tune. It's really cool. A little bit more arrangement in that tune, that would have been the one. Now, it has to be Owner of a Lonely Heart, which is one of the greatest songs of the 1980s, and almost defines the 1980s, doesn't it? So, I now arrive at the end of my video. That's all I'm going to do, right? Tormato wasn't so bad. But I was unaware of... I should have had foreboding because, you know, I got whipped into a patriotic frenzy. So it's my own fault. I've got the planets on in the car. It always does it for me. The planets does, especially the Jupiter suite, because it's that bit in the middle where he goes, I vow to thee, my country, da 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 da. I vow. That's that bit there. It always gets. I was nearly going to do it again, and I thought, no, don't do it again. They won't like it. No one will laugh. They won't even find it funny. But I do apologise for the overly. I know there's certain people out there that hate, you being patriotic about England. Anybody else can be patriotic about their country, can't they? You don't mind it then, do you? It's just England. You shouldn't be patriotic about England, even though we created, bloody liberal tolerance and the system of law, and we were able to depose our king without having to murder everybody, and we were able to split from the church, which, we did a whole bunch of stuff that basically brought about all the liberal values that you champion when you say you shouldn't be waving a flag about, but you can't understand that nuance, can you? No, well, it's not my fault, and I do try and squeeze these things in. Why? Because I come back and forth to my college to make these, to my studio to make these. I thought I was back in college then, Yeah, and did you really get that political in the lessons? Well, believe me, you actually did, because kids would ask questions. They would ask questions about politics. You see, it's very difficult to unpick politics when you're talking about aesthetics. It's a very difficult thing to do. But I do feel the foreboding I have is that I've brought the old flag out again, which means I'm going to lose a few subscribers. But the way I see it, anybody who's going to unscribe, I don't wave that around because it represents sort of colonialism or bloody far rightness. It's not that at all. That flag for me represents two separate countries coming together and uniting despite all the problems and inherent issues between those countries. That we were able to overcome that and be a united kingdom, respecting all these different cultures, bringing them together and having an overarching culture of tolerance and liberal thinking. And it didn't always work. It doesn't work now. And we might need to change things around a little bit. But that's what's in my mind at the moment. Sometimes it's hard to do these videos when you're worried about stuff like that. I am worried about that. I'm worried about my kids' future. I'm worried about the level of intolerance that exists in the world at the moment, and how people are able to love each other despite their differences. I find that very upsetting. So I brought you. See, I told you. This is it, isn't it? I'm getting all a bit depressed now. Getting a bit depressed. I need to lift myself out of this bloody hole. The black tentacles of chaos are grabbing me at the moment, pulling me down on camera as well. Thinking about the future. It's always not good to think about the future, isn't it? It's best to go and wallow in the past. Let's go back 50 odd years to when Yes were making brilliant albums and people wanted to buy tracks that were had no meaning and that were 20 minutes long. I had a great big organ right in the middle of them. Great big organ. Massive organs. We don't have them in music anymore. And I think that's where we're failing. I've definitely got to the end of the video now. I'm going to finish there. I just didn't want to leave on I wanted to clear up the old flag waving bit. It was there to entertain you. It was there to entertain you. I had to sing "I Vow to Thee, My Country," the hymn. We would sing that when I was a little kid. We used to all, get into school, get registered, and then we would all have to queue up and walk down to the main hall. And then we walk in row by row and we'd all sit down and cross our legs. I was never too good at crossing my leg, even as a nipper, because I wasn't that flexible. I'm not a flexible man at all. So I would sit there with my legs crossed, trying to move around, scuffling and getting told off for being scuffling. And then in my school, we had the headmaster was called Mr. Bryant. And he was from an era where people were born with one leg shorter than the other. We don't have this now because they've got modern medicine and this sorts these things out. But Mr. Bryant, very intelligent man, and he had master of a school, but he did have one leg short of the other, significantly short of the other. So he had a great big shoe, like a Frankenstein shoe, with the sole was about that thick. Right, and that meant that you could always tell Mr. Bryant was coming down the corridor because you would hear a boom, tap, and we'd all be sat there, right? We'd all walk in, they'd play some bloody music, classical music, you know, something probably like, I would imagine it was Handel or something like that. And we'd all sit down there, and then when we were all quiet, the whole school had to be quiet, and then Mr. Bryant would walk in, and he'd come in the back and he'd walk down the centre of the aisle, and he'd walk up to his lectern, and then he would start up, and it would be like the 1950s. He would start up on some sort of religious churchy thing, you know. Everybody stand, we will do prayer 746 or something. We get a little prayer books out that we got when we started school, and we do some prayer with him. And then we sing a hymn. I vow to thee, my country, the biggest and the best. Our country is the best of all. We're better than the rest. I'm paraphrasing. All the other types will subdue them. We'll fight them and enslave them all. Because we are the best in the world. Britain is the best of all. If you argue, we will shoot you down and stick our hands up your bum. So when you see the British coming, you better look and run. Something like that. Can't remember what it was. And then we would have like the Salvation Army come in. This is the bit for the viewers who stopped to the end. The rest of you can go now. This is like the after school chat. And then the Salvation Army would come in and they'd do a dance. Now, I remember back then, it was like now, where you'd have like bloody the track on, you know, Spotify, and you'd find the it wasn't like that. They had it on tape. I'm not talking about a cassette tape. This is the 1970s. They had a reel-to-reel tape. So this Salvation Army, I can remember the Salvation Army come in, and they're doing some song, you know, all these middle-aged ladies are dancing, and they're all tapping their tambourines like this, and the tape starts speeding up. Right, so they start speeding up with it, but the tape starts speeding up. Before you know it, they're like trying to go as fast as they possibly can, and they're banging into each other's tambourines are flying all over the place. And then Mr. Bright, he has to get involved to try and save them, because these Salvation Army ladies, they stick at what they do. They don't give up. So there they are. They're all punching each other in the face, and then they go, "Don't you punch me!" And they think tambourines are flying. Mr. Bright comes up with his big foot. Boom. Stop it, ladies! Calm it down. And he tries to calm it down. One of them turns around and said, "Don't you tell us what to do, you." Punches him in the face. He's bloody one-sided because his big boot pulls him off balance. He's like that across the... Oh, what's going to happen? He's heading for the tape player. As he grabs it, he pulls it, wrenches it down. Then we all stood up and sung the Golden Cockerel.